Hi Photoshoppers, this is Rebecca and I'm going to show you how to turn this photograph into a mid-century modern style illustration. So first thing we're going to do is get our image the size that we need to get it. I need it to be 6 by 9, so I'm going to go to the crop tool, and I know that I want to crop in this back side and just have her kind of peeking in to the left side of my canvas. So I can just pull the side of my crop tool in there and hit return to commit to that change. Then I go up to image. I'm going to go to image size now. Image size is going to change the overall whole dimensions of the image. I need my height to be 9. So I'm going to change my height to 9 and hit OK. Great. And so that just made our image even larger, and that's fine with me because I want to take advantage of the pixels in the effects that I'm using, and I'm not printing it super, super big, so I'm not going to see a lot of breakdown. It's a high enough resolution image that I'm okay with that. So next we're going to go to image and canvas size this time. I'm going to use the canvas size tool to crop this image instead of using the crop tool. So the way I do that, I'll change my measurement units to inches. And down here in the anchor area, I'm going to select this center left anchor. So now it's going to crop all the way around that point instead of cropping it from the center out. So it's not going to touch this left side of my canvas. It's just going to crop everything over to the right. So I want my width to be 6 inches. So I just type in 6 in the width field and hit OK. And it says it's going to cut off more part of your image. Are you okay with that? I am. So I'll hit the proceed button and now it's perfect. Great. So here's my model. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. Layer, duplicate layer. I like to do that just in case I need to refer back to the original at any point. Now I'm going to go up to my filter gallery and show you some of the cool filters. So up in filter, you're going to choose filter gallery here. The way that this works is that any of these thumbnails here that are in color, when you click on one, it'll show you the colors that are in your actual image with the filter applied to it. But anything that is in black and white, any of the thumbnails that are in black and white down here, those are going to use the foreground and background color that you have set on your in your color palette there. So we'll return to that in a minute. First, let's go ahead and look at these color ones. So the ones that look the best for the mid-century modern options are dry brush. This one's really nice. So you're just going to pull up your brush size and your texture. That's one option. I don't recommend film grain for this one yet. Another one is palette knife. I like how it really smooths things out. You just need to pull it back so that your figures, if you're working with a person in your image, which we are, then I just want to make sure her eyes aren't too blurry or distorted in any weird way. So I'm just pulling it around until I get a nice subtle adjustment. You can also adjust your softness. I'll crank it up, and I think I like it around 13 or 14. That looks nice there. Okay, so those are the ones that I recommend from that section. The next one is brush strokes. In here, I like the angled strokes a lot. I think that one looks really nice. So like I said, pull it back before it gets too blurry and just see what you like. It looks like stroke length makes it get even more blurry, and then sharpness will help a little bit there. All right. And the crosshatch is another nice one. It's similar to angled strokes. I'm going to pull up my stroke length a bit. It looks really nice too. Okay, so those are those options. I don't recommend anything from distort, and we'll come back to texture a little bit later, and I don't recommend any of the stylized ones for this application specifically, okay? The other one that is fun is the halftone pattern. So let me cancel out of this and I'll show you how this works. Actually, hold on. So since I have black and white chosen for my colors for my foreground and background colors, it's going to give me black and white here. So if I click on halftone, you can see how that looks. Okay, this is a really cool effect. When the halftone size is cranked all the way up to 12, you get this awesome effect. But that's not really mid-century modern. We need to pull it back a bit to show some more detail in the image for this project. And like at number 3, I get some breakdown here. So I think 2 looks good because it still shows enough detail. That looks a lot smoother and prettier. So that's an option there. But let me show you what I mean by changing those colors. So I'll hit cancel to exit out of here. I'll change my foreground color to something like that, and my background color to something sort of contrasting a bit, and hit OK. And now I'll go back into that filter gallery and go to a black and white halftone. I'll pull it back. So the colors that I chose are more of a 70s palette, but as you can see, this is what it looks like instead of having the black and white option. It's pretty cool, isn't it? So that's the halftone pattern with the two-tone option. I'll hit cancel here. There's also a full color halftone, and that's going to be down in the filter menu. If you scroll down to pixelate, it's the first option here, color halftone. So these are the defaults, and the maximum radius is set at 8, so I'll hit OK just to see how that looks. And that's your color halftone. If we zoom in, you can see all those colored dots there. So it's cyan, magenta, black, and yellow. And when they overlap, they make like a fluorescent green. So that's one option. I'm going to hit Command Z to show you what it looks like if we change that setting there. So I'll go back into Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone. So the smaller the maximum radius is, let me show you like a 4, the more detail you can see, the smaller the actual little circles are. And I'll undo Command Z. I'll go back in, Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone. We'll give it a bigger radius, like 16, and hit OK. And you can see those dots are a lot larger. It makes the image a little bit harder to see. So the smaller the radius, the smaller the dots, the easier it is to see without a lot of kind of this blurring that's happening here. Okay, so that's another option. Color halftone, the two-tone halftone, and those other filters that I went through up there. So now I'm going to show you how to change this using a series of filters. We can go back up into the filter gallery. Under the artistic section up here, we're going to choose paint daubs right here. This one's really nice. So with the paint daubs, you can change your brush size. And let me do this. So all of a sudden it smooths it way out. You can adjust your sharpness. And you see some texture come through. And that looks really beautiful too. Her eyes are a bit too blurry for me, so I'm going to pull it back a bit. That's 13. I think maybe 15 or 14 is looking good to me. I keep going back to 13. 14 it is, okay. And then you can change your different brush type styles. I like simple the most out of all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK and commit to that. Next, if you didn't see any difference, it's because you have your lower background layer selected. So just make sure you have the layer on top selected. Next, we're going to go to, we're going to add a little bit of surface blur to this. So that's still in the filter gallery. I'm sorry, it's not in the filter gallery. It's in the filter menu. Down here at blur, we're going to choose the last option, surface blur. So with surface blur, you can pull up your radius and just see how it looks. You can also zoom in and out in here, but it's looking nice to me. It's really smoothing out her skin to look more like a really nice blended paint. So I think I'm happy around 25 for the radius. Let's move our threshold and see how that, oh yeah, that's way too much. So we'll pull that back a bit. Yeah, I'm cool with around 13 there, and I'll hit OK. That looks nice to me. Now, just to make this a more painterly thing, let's go to Image, Adjustment, and Hue Saturation. So in these old paintings, these old illustrations that were painted, they didn't always match skin tone perfectly. So we are going to just pull this hue, like notice this can get really out of whack if you pull it too far. The hue adjustment is so subtle. You need to make just a few little steps here and there. We're going to pull it to the left and bring out a little bit of the reds there. So I like it looking very peachy. I like that -3. It just really plays off of the blouse that she's wearing and makes her lip color look really great. So I'm going to do -3 for my hue shift there and hit OK. So that was very subtle. And then next we will go ahead and adjust our contrast. So that's also in image adjustments. It's the first option, brightness contrast. I don't feel like this needs to be any brighter, but I will crank up my contrast a bit. And that makes it super rich there. I love that. That looks really nice. So I'm all the way up to 45. I really cranked it and hit OK. And then after that, let's just give it a tiny bit more blur. I know I'm saying keep your eyes in focus, but add more blur. That's okay. So we're going to go to filter, blur, and blur more. And it's just going to soften it just a little bit more. I know that was so subtle. If you blinked, you missed it, but that's how it is. So let me turn off the visibility of this first layer and we can just see the difference there, how it looks more painterly. Isn't that nice? Really pretty. Okay. So that's one option to make it look like an illustration. If you wanted to add some shapes or do any kind of an airbrush stippling effect like Mary Blair did and some of the other artists that we saw, I'll show you how to do that on a shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my ellipse tool in the rectangle tool drawer. And I'm going to make a new layer to draw this ellipse on. I'm just going to click and drag down here. And I will change my fill color just to show this over here in my properties panel. I'll change my fill color to like a nice yellow. Okay, that's good. That'll work. And then no stroke. Okay. So then I'm going to select this shape of this yellow circle by hovering over the thumbnail on the ellipse layer and hold down Command or Control on your keyboard until your little cursor icon turns to this hand with a little square on there. I'm going to, while that's my key is held down, I'm going to just click one time on there, and that's going to select any shape that is on a layer. So the only shape on that layer was the circle, so that's why it made that selection. It's a nice little quick selection way of doing things. So with that, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit make a new layer again above it. And I'm going to choose this gradient here under basics, the black and white gradient. Okay. So it just made another circle over my yellow circle. That's all I did. All right. Now to apply an effect to this gradient, I need to rasterize it first. So I can go to Layer, Rasterize, Fill Content, and now it's rasterized. Easy enough. You can also right click on that layer and you'll see rasterized layer there. Okay. So from there, we can do a few different things. We can change our blending mode from normal to multiply or lighten. Those are the two options there. We can also go up here into the filter gallery and click on the filter gallery itself. And we're going to go to texture and grain. All right. So from there, let me zoom out so we can see it. So from there, we're going to be able to increase our intensity. I say crank it all the way up to 100 there. And then there's different grain types. I think that regular is the best for this as opposed to the stippled, which is the effect that we're going for. I think just the regular works better. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we have this beautiful grain here. Now we need to change this to multiply. You can also change it to color burn. That might give you a cool effect that you'll like. Another option, let me go ahead and make the same selection again. I'll go to hold down my Command key and click on that. And I'm going to just turn off the visibility on that layer and make a new layer. Is to do a gradient that is black with no white. So where can I find that? Maybe this one. Oh, here. Let me change my colors in over here to the default of black and white, and here it is. It's the second option. And now it's filled that with black here and no, and it's fading into 100% transparency. So I need to go ahead and rasterize this new layer. I'm going to go to Layer, Rasterize, Fill Content. From there, I can go to Normal and just hit Dissolve, and that gives us a super stipple. It's a little bit more aggressive than what we saw in the illustrations, but you might like that, so that's an option there. So that was changing my blending mode from Normal to Dissolve is one option. Let's go back up and choose the filter gallery and see how it just applied that. Let me undo that. Sorry, filter. If you choose the last option here, it applies what you just did to the last step that you made in the filter gallery itself. I hope that made sense. So I'm going to go to my grain here. You can crank it up. You can change your contrast if you like. I feel like the higher you make the contrast, though, the harder it is to see the grain. So for this instance, I like to lower my contrast. And now I'll hit OK. And that's a nice stipple there. So, all right. So you got to learn how to use the different painter effects and how to add a stippling effect to a shape. Thanks for watching.